State of VR Ohio College Green Project, August 5th, 2021. So this is my fourth and final installment for this independent study project that's gone on. That's my VR Ohio College Green project, and it has been an experience. I set out to design a VR experience that can be taken and shown to prospective students and alumni and even current students that might enjoy a wonderful summer day on College Green. So I set out and took 360 video at 8 different locations on College Green and tried to turn each one into a fun, interesting, interactive VR experience. Using an Oculus Quest, we can walk around in that experience to a limited degree and interact with different objects and items and things in that, which I'll talk to a little bit and have talked about in previous installments of this. I also created informational kiosks at each one of the 8 locations that are distinct and different in their content, so that prospective students and alumni can have different experiences at each location. So there's a photo kiosk as well as a web terminal, and the photo kiosk draws from not only historic photos, but photos of things that student activities and things that go on at that location. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that under tasks completed. In terms of tasks completed, I have completed all 8 of the 360 VR scenes. They're all implemented now with their own unique qualities and things like that. There's a photo display at each of the 8 locations, and there are photos that have been chosen for each location, either based on the fact of its historic nature. Like you're seeing here, there's a picture of President Obama who spoke at Mamad. That picture was taken on the steps. One of the 8 locations is at Mamad on the portico, where you can see where he was standing. And so some of the photos that go with that are set to that theme. But there are historic photos, black and white photos that show the building or the creation of a location, that kind of thing. Some of them show student activities where we'll see the International Street Festival, which oftentimes takes up large runs on the College Green with all the national flags, and there's some pictures in there that kind of do that kind of thing. So I tried to mix it up and make it kind of interesting for lots of different people. The photo kiosk randomly pick a photo when the scene is loaded, so they don't always load one with the same photo every time. User can of course go over and pick up the tablet and poke and scroll through all the different photos and bring up whatever they want to see, but it will start with a random one when the scene loads. Web terminals have also been implemented at each of the 8 locations. They've had their default pages set based on the location. So, for example, the Cutler Hall scene will have the president's office loaded. The initial scene where College Gate is has just the Ohio University main page loaded. The location in front of Scripps, in front of Schoonover has the Scripps page loaded as its default page. And there's a variety of other ones. The registrar, alumni, student activities, things like that have all make an appearance in there as we go along. Scene selection has also been supported. It was something that I had implemented in a very basic way using a UI function that I didn't really care for. So I went through and pulled it out, and I built basically a big table that has a series of 8 buttons on it that are labeled, and you can walk over and just poke your hand on the button and it will take you to the next location. And so it should be relatively easy to use and look at, and we'll go through it as part of the demo that goes on. Things left to do, tasks remaining. There's always more to do and more that I would like to do. Right now, there's no load screens, so it can be a little jarring when the initial load of the application, if you happen to be wearing it when it initially loads, can be a little disorienting. And a load screen often does a nice job of sort of segueing from the real world into the virtual world, gives the user a chance to see the load screens and transition, and I haven't had a chance to dig into that to implement it, but it shouldn't be super difficult. The same is true with intra-scene load screens, where you hit the button on the big table that I was talking about, where you transition from one scene to the other. There probably needs to be a load screen as elements and pieces load in. It can be a very jarring experience where things are jaggy and shaky, and we'll probably see some of that in the demo. And an intro load screen would allow all that loading to happen and some of the sounds to come up while the user is staring at a load screen, and it gives a chance to have the user transition a little more smoothly between scenes, very similar to the way the initial load screen would work. Yeah, my single largest frustration is with the controllers. I still have not mastered the controllers. There's this funky raycast pointer thing that goes with it that is necessary for the web terminal, but I couldn't quite get. It was very frustrating, and I struggled a lot with this and finally had to just move on. And it was very frustrating. And it's the single most frustrating part of the experience to date is this controller issue that for my next project, I will absolutely stomp in the ground and understand before I move on. The last one is more of a wish list item. We talked earlier in some of the earlier ones about Bolt and the use of Bolt, and it was a wonderful learning tool. And I would use it very much. Bolt would be implemented to teach new people to scripting. It'd be a great way to do that. On the other hand, it's pretty inefficient. Load times would be faster, run times would be faster, and transitioning all that code from Bolt into C#, which is the native coding language of Unity, would make things much, several orders of magnitude more efficient. So I would be willing to, and it's not so much code right now that I wouldn't be willing to do that, because I think it would add fundamentally to a lot of the screen loading times, and scene loading times would be much faster and much more smooth in that respect. But from a learning standpoint, Bolt was what I needed when I got there. It's very full-featured. You can do a lot with it, but I would be willing to transition away from it. And probably should as it becomes a more professional project. All right, and we will go into demo time. The Alumni Gate. There's my hands with my crazy ray pointer that annoys me. But hey, we'll get over it. I am currently seated, and so I'm going to use the controllers to move, which is a little different than the normal use of this, which would allow you to walk around in the space. And so I will kind of glide and slide, and you can see here we've got a photo kiosk that I pick up, and we can look at historic pictures, and we should be able to scroll. Look at that. You can see some more modern pictures, color pictures, colorized pictures, older pictures of College Gate, which would let us do that. And we can also, you'll see here we've got our web kiosk, which has OU's main page. And it is, you know, hot. We can click on different things like research, and you can go to research, and stuff like that. There's the ability to type in here at the bottom. We can change keyboards if we have different languages. And of course, we have our large table here that I have created that all the different buttons take us to different places. I haven't yet written code that if you click on the button for Alumni Gate, it'll actually reload this scene, which is bad, and I should probably fix that. Speaking of things that ought to go on the to-do list. But we will go on to the class gate, and by hitting the button, you can see we kind of herky-jerky in as I look around things. There's an hourglass that came up. Some load screens would probably help quite a bit. You'll notice we start off in the same location with our squirrels. I could probably randomize that, but you'll notice we wind up at a location here that is the class gate, and you can see our class gate. You can also see some cool pictures that I picked up of the class gate, and some are quite pretty, and we have some student ones. They don't always shape the right way. I need to look into that. You can see here we've got new pictures and old pictures. I even found a picture. The photo archive vault at OU and the library both provided these. This is a picture of the Class Gateway before the Class Gateway existed, which I thought was very neato. And again, we've got our table. It's because the lighting looks a little different, but it's really the same table. And we get history and traditions. That's what I put up. It was kind of a class alumni thing. You can go anywhere in the browser. Any of these would work, and you could literally go anywhere. And we will go on to Cutler Hall. Let me teleport it. Now, the first three that I've shown here are the three scenes that I have traditionally worked with for all my other demo projects and things like that. And so I'm sort of showing off some of the newer pieces that I added. I was especially proud of this picture. I rather like the International Street Festival. It's fun. And when they do it with all the different flags, I think it's quite pretty. So you can see we've got kids on College Green. Always fun. Since kids spend so much time on College Green wandering back and forth, it's always quite nice. And we will go on to some of the new locations. So here we are at one of our new locations. This is Chubb Hall. We actually, what we're looking at here right in front of us, you can see over there, I'll have a different location that I set up. But I set up one for Chubb Hall. And the web kiosk shows the University Registrar's website because the registrar's in there and I thought it was a good thing to do so we can commencement and enrolling in transcripts, and I thought it was kind of cool. So I put that in. And the pictures, believe it or not, there are not that many photos of Chubb Hall. So, at least not the outside. There's a lot of pictures of the inside of Chubb Hall, especially when it was a library and things like that. So I found some interesting historic photos of Chubb Hall and some pictures of people outside. That's actually the modern background, but it was students and tours. And I believe that's the arborist, university arborist, giving a tour of the trees. But there are some interesting older pictures back when it was a library and things like that. It's the same picture twice, actually. This was kind of a neat picture because in the background you can see some interesting things that don't exist anymore. I believe that's a musical instrument of some kind. Alright. But as we teleport, we will see Kissing Circle, which is not that far from Chubb, if I recall correctly. We'll see Chubb here to the left when we finally teleport in. Some scenes take a little longer to load than others. And again with the International Street Festival, which I rather like. And there's a variety of other interesting pictures of Cutler. Because Cutler's, of course, right up the street here. And we have a variety of other interesting pictures. We'll go with that. I'm trying to give a sense of what goes on College Green. That's from this location. But lots of student activity fairs have gone on over the years here. And of course we get a sense of the seasons as we go along. This particular location had the alumni. Alumni is certainly part of what this was made for, so the alumni website made some sense to put it up there. And this is the portico at Memorial Auditorium. And I found this to be one of the more interesting locations that happened, as there's lots of interesting things that have happened here that are newsworthy. So the web kiosk shows the university's main news page, which I believe is ohio.edu/news. And it will, of course, change as different things come along and we get more interesting things to show or different things to show. But often what happens here on the portico is newsworthy. And that is reflected in several different ways. On our photos here, we can see a picture of the alumni band showing that what's going on. We also have pictures of things like President Obama, who spoke here at the portico. President Clinton, that spoke for Hillary Clinton's election. We have interesting student activities that happen and go on. We also have student activities. This was a homeless display that was put out here in the portico to talk about homelessness among students. We have lots of student activities that happen here. We have the MLK March that happens I think it happens every year now that I think about it. And there are a variety of interesting historic pictures that go with this. This location had more photos than any other location because there was just more to show and more to see. Trayvon Martin, things like that. So there are a variety of interesting, both political, social, student activity, that kind of thing went on at this location. We teleport to a location here as we look up. I think it's the Kissing Circle, if I'm not mistaken. And I called this Inside Class Gateway. It is not an official location, but there were a number of student photos that went on here that were kind of interesting. From Rufus to a number of things that happened at the monument. And I realized after I did this, one of the locations I do not have is the monument, which we can see over here. It just so happened that when I put up the camera, I didn't even think about the monument, and it winds up being moderately blocked from a lot of the locations. You can see it here kind of in the background, so I added it. This is the student involvement and engagement page. So it shows lots of student orgs and performing series and things like that, both virtual. It will change as they update their page. And I thought student involvement engagement was culturally a touchstone that was part of our college green, and therefore important to show. And Schoonover, where I work and have lots of my activities in life, was shown here as a primary building on College Green, and we have some interesting pictures of old Baker Center and new centers that go on. Right there's the ECT Ducky and Hans. Didn't realize it was Hans. But we have some pictures of current Baker as well as, of current Schoonover, which sets on the location of the old Baker Center. And so there are some interesting pictures of old Baker Center. This is right before it was torn down, because the sign here says future home of college communication. So we can see some of the pictures that go with that. And if we look, we can see old, pictures of Baker Center. This is pictures of Baker Center when Baker Center was being built. So I found those kind of interesting and historic in that context. And of course, the college communication is what's on the web kiosk, because it's their building. I really want to take a second to thank a whole lot of people that helped me make this project, starting with my wife, who I can't do anything without her. I wouldn't even be here without her. So she's always first on the list. And I want to thank my colleagues that helped me when I ask them insane, weird questions, and they help answer them. I appreciate that. Really couldn't do this without Dr. Kessler. Thanks, Dr. K. Again, appreciate the opportunity. Dr. Linscott and Dr. Wu, you guys have been really big help answering questions and pointing me in the right direction, and thanks a lot. I really, really, really appreciate it. I look forward to making more of these fun things.